What happens when a single reckless moment in a rushing river changes everything? This is not just a story about survival. It's about the kind of rescue that awakens something deeper. A city boy, a rugged cowboy, and a love story that flows wilder than the current itself. Today, we're diving into a BL webtoon-style yaoi romance, a manhwa love story about fate, fear, and desire. The story begins in the heart of summer. Eli, a young art student from the city, finds himself in a small rural town where the skies stretch endlessly and the land seems untouched by time. He isn't here for adventure, just to escape the noise of urban life and to heal from the stress that's been clawing at his mind. But there's something about this countryside, something both terrifying and freeing. Near the town lies a river, a place locals treat with caution. Its waters are unpredictable, its currents fierce. But to Eli, it's the perfect spot to clear his head, to sketch, to dream. And then there's him, Damien, the cowboy who seems carved from the very land he works on. Wide shoulders, rough hands, eyes that carry both danger and gentleness. He is a man of the ranch, the horses, the endless fields. He lives by instinct, not words. At first, their worlds don't mix. The quiet city boy and the bold cowboy are opposites, a trope as old as romance itself. But BL webtoon lovers know opposites are exactly what make sparks fly. One day, when Eli dares to swim in the forbidden river, the current pulls him under. Panic sets in. Water fills his lungs. He kicks, thrashes, but the current is merciless. Then, strong arms, a body collides with his, a voice deep and commanding. Hold on, don't fight me. It's Damien, the cowboy who shouldn't have cared but who throws himself into danger without hesitation. The rescue is messy, water, gasps, and desperation. When Eli is finally pulled to shore, coughing and shivering, Damien doesn't scold, he simply looks at him, intense, unreadable. And for Eli, something shifts. The boy who came here to heal never expected to be seen. Not like this, vulnerable, fragile, alive because of someone else's strength. But that's only the beginning. The days after the rescue, Eli and Damien cross paths again. At the general store, by the fence of the ranch, at the very river Eli now avoids. Their interactions are sharp, awkward, charged. Damien teases him. You really don't belong here, city boy. Rivers like that eat men alive. Eli snaps back. And yet, you pulled me out. Why? Soft pause. That question lingers. Eli sketches Damien in secret, broad strokes on a page, trying to capture the man's impossible mixture of cruelty and care. But Damien notices. He always notices. And sometimes, instead of mocking, he lingers. He watches Eli with a softness that betrays something else. The conflict grows not from the river, but from the pull between them. Eli wants to resist. Damien wants to deny. Yet their worlds keep colliding, forcing them to confront the truth. Desire doesn't care about labels, towns, or tradition. It happens one evening, under a blood-orange sunset. Eli is sketching by the fence, lost in thought. Damien approaches, silent at first, then blunt. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Eli freezes. His heart races. I'm not. The air between them was heavy, not just with heat, not just with the late sun bleeding over the horizon, but with something sharper, something fragile, something that made Eli's chest ache. But Damien stepped closer. The distance shrank with every boot step pressing into the dirt. Shadows stretched between them, long and tangled, as if even the evening light didn't know how to separate the two of them anymore. Eli's breath hitched. He wanted to step back, to retreat into safety, but his body refused. His hands tightened on his sketchbook, knuckles pale as if holding onto it. would anchor him against the storm Damien carried in his presence. Then it happened. Damien's hand brushed against the book, rough, calloused fingers grazing the edge of the worn cover. The motion was so casual, so effortless, but to Eli it felt like a lightning strike. The sketchbook tilted, pages fluttering in the wind, before Damien's palm pressed down and held it still. His thumb brushed the paper. His eyes flicked downward, and there, revealed in the golden light, were the drawings, dozens of them, all Damien, not just his face, not just his broad shoulders, or the way his hat always shadowed his gaze. Eli had drawn the little things, the curve of Damien's jaw when he smirked, the tension in his neck when he worked the ranch, the softness in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. Eli's entire soul, etched in graphite and ink, lay exposed in Damien's hands. Dramatic pause. Eli's stomach dropped, his heart screamed. He reached for the book, panic flooding his veins. Don't! But Damien didn't let go. His gaze lingered on the sketches. He didn't laugh. He didn't sneer. He didn't mock the way Eli had braced himself for. Instead, his expression shifted, confusion, awe, maybe even a crack of vulnerability. For a moment, Damien looked less like the fearless cowboy and more like a boy who had stumbled across something he wasn't supposed to see, yet couldn't look away from. The silence was unbearable. The barn was quiet except for the restless shuffle of horses in their stalls. Dust motes floated in the late afternoon light, golden and thick, catching on every movement like secrets suspended in the air. Eli's chest tightened with every heartbeat, his lungs refusing to keep up. Damien didn't move. His grip stayed firm on the sketchbook, thumb pressed against the worn leather edge. When his eyes finally lifted, they weren't mocking like they usually were. They burned, hot, unflinching. A fire that made Eli's knees weak. "Why?" Damien asked softly, his voice lower than Eli had ever heard it. "Do you keep looking at me like this?" Eli froze. The words sliced through him more deeply than any insult ever had. His throat dried. His tongue felt heavy. His mind screamed for an answer, but none came. What could he say? That every time Damien mocked him, his heart betrayed him by wanting more. That every cruel smile carried something sweeter, hidden underneath. That he hated him, feared him, longed for him, all at once. His pulse hammered in his ears. He swallowed, but it didn't help. "I'm not," Eli muttered, voice trembling. But even he didn't believe the lie. Damien's lips quirked, not into a smirk, not into cruelty, but something unreadable. He stepped closer, close enough that Eli could smell the faint leather of his jacket, the musk of sweat and hay, the sharpness of river water still clinging to his skin. The world narrowed. No ranch, no horses, no town, no rules. Just Damien, just Eli. The sketchbook lay between them like a confession. Neither wanted to voice. Its pages filled with Damien's face, angry, thoughtful, broken, beautiful. Eli had drawn him over and over, unable to stop himself. Every line betrayed what he never dared say aloud. Damien's hand brushed over the pages, pausing on a portrait where his eyes had been captured softer, less guarded. He inhaled sharply, as though he wasn't used to being seen that way. "You..." Damien's voice faltered, then steadied. "You see me differently than anyone else." Eli's chest ached. He wanted to look away, to deny it, to snatch the book back and run, but something in Damien's tone rooted him in place. It wasn't taunting. It wasn't cruel. It was almost vulnerable. "Why do you care?" Eli whispered. "Because," Damien said, and his jaw tightened, "I don't know what to do when you look at me like that." Eli's breath hitched. His body wanted to move forward, but his fear slammed the brakes. He'd been bullied, mocked, shoved into lockers. Damien had been the ringleader of it all. And yet, here he was, holding Eli's most fragile secret like it mattered. "You hate me," Eli said, voice cracking. Damien shook his head slowly. "I thought I did. Maybe I wanted to. Maybe it was easier than admitting." His words trailed off, unfinished, dangling in the thick barn air. Admitting what? Eli's hands trembled at his sides. He clenched his fist to keep them still. "Admitting what?" he asked, his voice sharper than he intended. Damien looked at him, really looked at him, like he was searching for courage in Eli's face. Then, without warning, he closed the space between them. His hand slid from the sketchbook to Eli's wrist. Not rough, not cruel, but firm enough to make Eli's breath stutter. And then, without another word, Damien leaned in. The kiss was rough, unpracticed, desperate. It wasn't the polished kind Eli had read about in romance manga. It tasted of salt and fear and everything they'd both been denying. Eli's eyes flew wide, his knees nearly buckled, the world tilted. The river roared somewhere nearby, echoing the flood inside their chests. Damien pulled back first, breathing hard like the act had stolen something from him. His eyes darted over Eli's face, searching for an answer, a reaction, forgiveness, or maybe rejection. "I shouldn't have done that," he said quickly, voice ragged. Eli's lips tingled. His heart pounded against his ribs, wild and terrified. He wanted to scream, he wanted to run, he wanted to kiss him again. "Why did you?" Eli whispered, words barely there. Damien's gaze dropped to the sketchbook, still in his hand. "Because you make me feel like I'm not just the bastard everyone thinks I am." His throat worked. "Because when you look at me, it's like you see something I don't hate." The admission shattered Eli. He had imagined every cruel reason Damien might have for tormenting him. But this raw confession, was something else entirely. He reached for the sketchbook, and this time Damien let it go. Eli clutched it to his chest like a shield. "This doesn't make sense," Eli whispered. His voice shook, but his eyes didn't leave Damien's. "You made my life hell." "I know," Damien's voice cracked, "and I can't take that back." Silence stretched. The barn seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Eli asked the question that burned at his core. "So what is this then? Some sick joke? Or," his voice faltered, "or do you actually want me?" Damien stepped forward again, but slower this time. Careful. As though Eli was something fragile, he was terrified of breaking. "I want you," Damien said, steady and low, "more than I know how to explain." Eli's chest caved with the weight of it. His whole life had been defined by loneliness, by keeping walls so high no one could climb them. And yet Damien, the last person he should trust, was now asking to be let inside. Eli's mind screamed no. But his heart betrayed him. Tears stung his eyes. "Then prove it," he whispered. Damien hesitated, then reached out. His hand brushed Eli's cheek, tentative, trembling. It wasn't the touch of a bully. It wasn't cruel or mocking. It was careful, reverent. Eli leaned into it before he could stop himself. The warmth sank deep into his bones, thawing a part of him he hadn't realized was frozen. Damien's thumb brushed away a tear Eli hadn't noticed had fallen. His voice was hoarse. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." "Maybe not," Eli whispered back. "But neither do I." The kiss that followed was softer, slower, a promise instead of a question. And for the first time, Eli didn't feel like he was drowning. For the first time, he felt like he could breathe, and the pages between them filled with truths too raw to be spoken aloud. Damien's fingers lingered on the sketches, brushing over a line that caught the tenderness in his smile. Something Eli had only seen once, maybe twice. His jaw clenched, his chest rose with a deep breath, and then, without another word, He leaned in. The kiss was not gentle. It was rough, unpracticed, desperate. Damien's lips crashed against Eli's like a storm breaking, like a dam finally shattering under too much weight. It tasted of salt and fear, of anger and longing, of everything both of them had denied for too long. Eli gasped against him, shocked, trembling but unable to pull away. His sketchbook tumbled from his hands, forgotten, pages scattering across the dirt like confessions set free. The world tilted, the earth spun, the river roared somewhere nearby, its current echoing the flood inside their chests. Damien's hand slid behind Eli's neck, holding him in place, firm but not cruel. His other hand gripped Eli's waist, anchoring him against the force of his own kiss. It wasn't perfect. Their teeth clashed, their breaths tangled, their hearts hammered too fast, too hard, like wild horses breaking loose in the dark, but it was real. Eli's hands shook as they lifted, caught in a war between instinct and fear. Should he push Damien away, reclaim the years of bitterness and anger, or should he pull him closer, surrendering to the one thing he'd secretly wanted for longer than he could admit? In the end, his hands chose for him. They landed on Damien's chest, trembling against the heat radiating through the fabric of his shirt. And there, beneath his fingertips, was the rapid, uneven beat of Damien's heart. Proof that this wasn't just some cruel joke, proof that Damien was just as lost in this as he was. Eli's chest tightened, his knees weakened, every nerve screamed that this moment was impossible, that it couldn't be real. And yet Damien's lips were on his, insistent and alive, grounding him in a reality that felt both terrifying and inevitable. When Damien finally pulled back, their foreheads stayed pressed together, breaths mingling in the still air. The barn was silent except for the restless shuffle of horses in their stalls and the wild rhythm of two boys who had forgotten how to breathe until now. Damien's voice broke the silence, low and unsteady. "I don't know what I'm doing." Eli's laugh came out shaky, humorless. "You're kissing me. That much is obvious." Damien's hand lingered at his waist, reluctant to let go. "You think I don't know that? He bit back the words, his throat working as though every syllable cost him. Finally, he whispered, "I can't stop." Eli's heart twisted. "You shouldn't have started. Maybe." Damien's gaze locked onto his, eyes burning in the dim light. "But I don't regret it." The weight of those words pressed down on Eli's chest. He wanted to deny them, to accuse Damien of playing another cruel trick, but the trembling in Damien's hands, the unguarded rawness in his voice told a different story. Eli swallowed hard. "You've made my life hell." "I know," Damien's voice cracked, "and I'll spend the rest of it trying to make up for it. If you let me." The vulnerability in his tone disarmed Eli more than any insult ever had. He searched Damien's face, looking for the mask, the smirk, the mockery he had come to expect. But it wasn't there. For once, Damien wasn't the confident tormentor, the swaggering cowboy boy who ruled every space he walked into. For once, he was just a boy who was scared, a boy who wanted something he couldn't name. Eli's throat tightened. "Why me?" Damien didn't answer right away. His thumb brushed absently against Eli's hip, like he needed the contact to steady himself. Finally, he said, "Because when you look at me, I feel like I'm more than what people say I am. You don't just see the bastard. You don't just see the anger. Somehow, you see me." Eli's eyes burned. He wanted to argue. He wanted to say Damien didn't deserve that kind of grace, not after all the years of cruel words and laughter at his expense. But deep down, he knew Damien was right. He did see him differently. That was why Damien's presence had always unsettled him so deeply, why every insult had cut sharper, why every lingering glance had felt like a confession unspoken. "You're wrong," Eli whispered, though his voice lacked conviction. Damien smirked faintly, but it wasn't cruel. "Then why do you keep drawing me?" Eli froze. His grip on the sketchbook tightened against his chest. "You weren't supposed to see that." "I know." Damien's voice softened, "but I'm glad I did." Eli's breath caught. His secrets lay exposed, sketched in graphite lines across worn pages. Every stolen glance, every hidden longing, every emotion he'd buried too deep to name. All of it was laid bare in those drawings. And Damien wasn't mocking him for it. He was treasuring it. Eli's walls began to crack. "You confused me," Eli admitted, voice trembling. Damien's lips curved into something almost tender. "Good. Because you confused the hell out of me, too." He leaned in again, slower this time, giving Eli the space to pull away. But Eli didn't. He couldn't. His body betrayed him, leaning into the kiss that followed, like it was gravity itself pulling him closer. This one was different, softer, less desperate. Their lips moved hesitantly, learning each other, testing the fragile thread of trust stretching between them. Eli's hand slid upward almost without thought, clutching Damien's shirt like a lifeline. Damien's fingers brushed along his jaw, feather-light, reverent. The world outside ceased to exist. There was no river, no town, no past, only the present, the warmth of lips pressed together, the tremor of hands too afraid to let go, the wild hope blooming in a place that had long been barren. When they broke apart, both boys were flushed, chests heaving. Eli's voice was barely a whisper. This was never about the river. Damien frowned slightly, confused. Eli's eyes glistened as the words slipped free, fragile but certain. It was about being pulled out of loneliness. The silence after stretched, but it wasn't heavy. It was full. Damien rested his forehead against Eli's again, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Then let me keep pulling you out," he whispered. Tears slipped down Eli's cheeks before he could stop them. He didn't know if he could trust Damien completely. Not yet. But for the first time, the thought didn't terrify him. For the first time, the possibility of letting someone in felt less like drowning and more like breathing. And in Damien's arms, Eli chose to breathe. His lips parted, and Damien deepened the kiss, groaning low in his throat. It wasn't just desire, it was surrender. The cowboy who had built walls around himself, the boy who had hidden behind bravado and cruelty, was finally letting go. And Eli was drowning again, but this time in something he never wanted to escape from. Time blurred, the sky darkened, stars blinking awake above them. Still, neither pulled away, not until the need for air forced them apart. They gasped, foreheads pressed together, chests heaving. Damien's hand still held Eli's neck. Eli's fingers still clutched Damien's shirt. The distance between them was gone, burned away by a kiss that had rewritten everything. Damien's voice was hoarse when he spoke. "I told myself, I hated you, that you didn't belong here, that you were weak, but..." His grip tightened, desperate. "All this time, I think I was just scared. Scared of how much I wanted you." Eli's eyes stung. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His voice was barely a whisper. "And I was scared of you," he confessed. "Scared of hating you, scared of wanting you too." Their words hung in the night air, raw, fragile, unpolished. But they didn't need polish. They were enough. Because in that moment, under the gaze of the stars and the roar of the river, they both understood. This wasn't about a rescue. This wasn't about a river. This was about two boys who had been drowning in silence, in fear, in loneliness, and who had finally found a way to breathe. Damien pressed another kiss to Eli's forehead, softer this time, trembling with restraint. Eli closed his eyes, leaning into the touch, letting himself believe just for once that he wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in years, the world didn't feel terrifying. It felt alive. It felt like love. After that kiss, nothing is the same. The city boy who felt lost finds a home, not in the land, but in the arms of someone he never expected. Damien, the cowboy who never believed in tenderness, learns that strength isn't about fighting rivers, but about letting love in. Their story isn't a glossy BL manoir. It's raw, uncertain, real. But maybe that's why it matters, because sometimes the people who save us from drowning aren't just rescuers. They're the ones who teach us how to breathe again. It's easy to look at a story like this and think it's about the river, the danger, the rescue, the gasp for air. But when we step back, we realize it's never just about the water. It's about two lives colliding at the exact moment they were both silently drowning. One in the current of the river, the other in the current of loneliness. And that's the heartbeat of every great BL webtoon, every yaoi manhwa, every romance manga that makes us stay up at night turning page after page. It's never just about the kiss, or the rescue, or the enemies to lovers tension. It's about transformation, about how love doesn't just change the way you look at someone else. It changes the way you see yourself. When Eli stumbled into that river, he thought he was drowning only in water, but in truth, he'd been drowning for years, drowning in silence, in the weight of expectations, in the ache of being unseen. He was a city boy, but his loneliness wasn't tied to place. It was tied to feeling invisible in a world that never asked how much he was hurting. Then came Damien, the cowboy, the savior, the boy who had always lived with strength pressed into his bones. But even cowboys have their own rivers. His wasn't made of water. His was made of pride, of duty, of fear, of softness. Damien wasn't supposed to feel, not this way, not toward Eli, not toward anyone. So what happens when two rivers crash into each other? They flood, they overflow, and that's what their story became. Dramatic pause. A flood of tension, of stolen glances, of anger that masked desire, of silence that carried more weight than words, and finally, that kiss, that rough, desperate, breathless kiss. The moment when both of them realized they weren't just pulling each other out of rivers, they were pulling each other out of themselves. BL readers know this trope well, the savior romance, the rescue that changes everything. We've seen it in BL webtoons, yaoi manhwa, and romance manga again and again. And yet, every time it feels new. Why? Because at the core, we all crave it. To be seen when we're weakest, to be caught when we fall, to be held when we can't hold ourselves. It's why enemies to lovers burn so hot, why forbidden love stories grip us so tightly, why arranged marriage manhwa keep us turning pages. Because underneath the tropes, there's a universal ache, the desire to be chosen. And that's exactly what Eli and Damien's story gives us. It tells us, yes, you can be fragile and still be loved. Yes, you can be strong and still need saving. Yes, you can be pulled out of a river and discover you've been learning to breathe wrong your whole life. Think about Eli again, the boy who came to the countryside just to escape. He didn't think he would find love. He didn't even think he deserved it. But he found it in the last place he expected, in the rough hands of someone who teased him, challenged him, and eventually cherished him. And Damien, the cowboy who'd been taught that strength meant silence, that softness was weakness, that feelings were something you buried deep in the dirt along with old regrets. He didn't go into that river to fall in love. He went in because it was instinct, because he couldn't watch someone suffer. But when he pulled Eli out, he pulled out a piece of himself too, the piece that had always been waiting for permission to feel. That's the magic of BL romance. It's not about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who holds a mirror up to your soul and says, I see you, even the parts you hide. Now, let's pause for a moment, because some might say, this is just fiction, just another yaoi romance, just another BL webtoon-inspired story. But here's the truth. These stories matter because they remind us of possibilities. In reality, maybe not every river rescue leads to a kiss. Maybe not every cowboy hides a heart that beats for someone unexpected. But in these stories, we're reminded of the truth beneath the fantasy, that everyone, no matter how tough, no matter how broken, longs for connection. That's why BL Manhwa has captured readers worldwide. It doesn't just entertain, it heals. It whispers to us, you are not alone in your longing. Because in the end, Eli's story is not just about a boy who almost drowned, and Damien's story is not just about a cowboy who pulled someone to safety. It's about how love shows up when we least expect it. It's about how desire can bloom in the cracks of fear. It's about how we don't just need rescuers, we need partners, people who teach us not just how to survive, but how to live. So yes, sometimes the people who save us from drowning aren't just rescuers. They are the ones who teach us how to breathe again. And that breath, that fragile, powerful, transformative breath is what love really is. So, let me ask you, dear viewers, what did you feel watching this BL cowboy love story unfold? Did your heart race with Eli as he sank beneath the water? Did you feel the heat when Damien's eyes softened for the first time? Did you hold your breath at that kiss, that raw, unpracticed, world-shifting kiss? Was it heart-stopping, sweet, emotional, or maybe all three? Drop your reaction in the comments below. I want to know if this story reminded you of your favorite BL webtoon, or if it gave you the same butterflies that yaoi manhwa always does. And if you felt even a spark of emotion, don't forget, this is just one story among thousands. Subscribe to this channel for more BL webtoon breakdowns, yaoi manhwa love stories, and romance manga summaries that will keep your heart pounding and your imagination alive. We cover everything here, from forbidden love stories to arranged marriage manhwa, from enemies to lovers drama, to tender found family tropes. Whether you're new to BL or a long-time fan, there's always another story waiting to pull you under, and another character ready to teach you how to breathe again. And don't forget to check the description for full story links and more BL recommendations. Because who knows, the next story you click on might just be the one that saves you.